Earlier today, exactly 1 month after Canadians learned of widespread corruption and political interference in the rule of law from the Prime Minister's office, Justin Trudeau finally faced Canadians. Over the last 4 weeks, Mr. Trudeau has been credibly accused by his own Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, of politically interfering in the criminal prosecution of a well-connected engineering firm. It's now beyond dispute that he and his office bullied and threatened Ms. Wilson-Raybould in an attempt to get her to let SNC-Lavalin off the hook. When she resisted these attempts, he fired her. The seriousness and severity of what is at stake for our country cannot be overstated. The rule of law is our oldest constitutional principle. It is a fundamental pillar of our democracy. From it, we derive our freedom. And over the last month, Conservatives have witnessed Justin Trudeau and their Prime Minister corrupt that very rule of law and try in vain to cover it up. Since this affair became public, Mr. Trudeau has lost 2 cabinet ministers and his closest political advisor. The House of Commons Justice Committee is investigating. 5 former attorneys general have said the RCMP should consider criminal charges. And Justin Trudeau has been hunkered down in damage control, leaving the ship of state without a captain. Justin Trudeau would like Canadians to believe that all of this took place simply because different people had different experiences of events. But there is something that Justin Trudeau simply does not understand. The truth cannot be experienced differently. There is such a thing as right and wrong, and real leaders know the difference between them. Now he says he will convene a panel of experts to explore ways of changing the Attorney General's role to save him from himself and his uncontrollable urges to meddle in the course of justice. The problem isn't with the rules. The problem is when you have people who are trying to break the rules. Politicians who try to break rules will always find new ways of breaking new rules. Justin Trudeau is always using phony excuses around protecting jobs, to which I would say 2 things. First, neither Mr. Trudeau nor Mr. Wernick or Mr. Butts have provided any evidence to back up their claims that jobs would be lost should their attempts to interfere fail. In fact, they received direct questions as to whether or not they had any reports or studies to back up their claim. They admitted that they had not even looked into that suggestion. Trudeau's interference was not about jobs. It was about protecting a Liberal-linked, well-connected corporation with an army of government lobbyists. Second, and most importantly, there can never be justification for political manipulation of the rule of law. There is no reason good enough. Mr. Trudeau might not believe that, but I do. 2 weeks ago, after Ms. Wilson-Raybould's detailed and compelling testimony to the Justice Committee, I called on Justin Trudeau to resign. I stand by that call today, because the Justin Trudeau we saw today is the real Justin Trudeau, a Prime Minister who can't manage his own office, let alone the affairs of a great nation. A Prime Minister who views political interference in the criminal justice system as a routine matter of government operation. And a Prime Minister who will readily trample the Constitution and the rule of law to win elections and to help his friends. Justin Trudeau might not see anything wrong with any of that, but Canadians do, and so do I. For generations, Canada has shone as an example of good government to the rest of the world. People come to Canada from countries without the rule of law, where political leaders run the justice system and where the law doesn't apply to you if you know the right people. They come to Canada to escape that. But now, this is the very path that Justin Trudeau is taking us down. And if he doesn't do the right thing and step aside, Canadians will determine his fate this fall.
Prime Minister, what about the activities of your staff and all this? The clerk, all of these suggestions that in those meetings with Jody Wilson-Raybould, there was issues of we have to get elected. We can't just make this a justice decision. You're running into a collision with the Prime Minister. What about all that?
Every conversation that was had was obviously focused on the well-being of Canadians. It is our responsibility to ensure that we're doing everything we can to protect jobs, to grow our economy, to ensure that pensioners and workers are protected, and that's something that my job and my team take very, very seriously. Every step of the way, however, we are careful to ensure that we are respecting our institutions and, indeed, the integrity of the justice system.
But did those things happen? Did your aides say, it's all right to have a good justice policy, but we have to get elected? Did your aides talk about Quebec politics and your re-election in the context of a criminal prosecution?
There were detailed conversations on a broad range of things that were discussed and laid bare in the various testimonies that we heard over the past weeks. What I can tell you is my team and everyone in this government always remains focused on how we make sure that we're protecting jobs and building a better future for Canadians, and doing so in a way that protects our institutions.
Turn down your offer to become Indigenous Services Minister. Why did you feel compelled to move her to a different portfolio? Why didn't you just leave her in the Justice portfolio if you felt she was doing a good job there?
I think it's extremely important to ensure that you have strong people leading different parts of the government. And there is no question that reconciliation and indeed the relationship with Indigenous peoples was something that has always been at the heart of the priorities of this government. So looking to have a strong leader whose engagement in Indigenous issues has been lifelong and whose thoughtful approach on this was something that I relied on quite significantly, particularly as we were moving forward on historic legislations like Child and Family Services, which is actually about empowering Indigenous communities and Indigenous leadership to control what happens to their children instead of having the federal government or provincial governments do that. These were important things that I thought she was she would be excellent at, and that it would be very good to indicate just how much this issue continued to matter to our government, even though we had moved Minister Philpott out of that file.
But you didn't really address the point of my question. She had a fairly plausible explanation of why she couldn't, in good faith, take that job on, because she didn't want to have to enforce the Indian Act that she'd spoken out against previously. Why not leave her as Justice Minister? And do you regret not leaving her as Justice Minister?
I think as we look back over the past weeks, there are many lessons to be learned. And many things that we would like to have done differently, and that is certainly part of the reflection we need to have going forward. But in terms of how we move forward and how we make decisions in who is going to be in and where within cabinet, those decisions are ones that we take seriously, and we always look to move forward, not backwards on that.
Le devoir.
Minister Wilson-Raybould says that she told you on September 17th that she had made her decision, and after that you told your staff to continue to work on the file. Why would you ask them to continue to work on it if she told you she'd already made up her mind?
Part of the terms of the DPA indicates that decision can be taken by the Attorney General up until the very last minute of a trial. So we considered that she was still open to hearing different arguments and different approaches on what her decision could be. As we now learned through this testimony, that was not the case. But like I said, there was an erosion of trust, a lack of communications to me and to my office about her her state of mind on this, and that is certainly something that I'm having to reflect on as a leader, and that I'm looking forward to improving on as we go forward. I've always tried to foster an environment in which people can come and share with me their concerns, large or small, whether they be cabinet ministers or caucus members, but there's always room for improvement, obviously.
You said you're seeking outside legal opinions on a number of matters, including how your staff and civil servants relate to justice. Can you explain that a little bit more? What are you hoping to learn, and when will this happen?
We've reached out to a number of thoughtful Canadian leaders, and we will have more to announce as we move forward. But there's no question that there are lessons to be learned from this situation, and Canadians expect us to, as we go through difficult situations, that